We speak to GroundUp News, the not-for-profit news agency that does very, very important public interest journalism. And as always, I'm joined by GroundUp Deputy Editor Barbara October. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning, Lester, and good morning to your listeners. I hope you're doing well.
I'm very, very well, yeah. Let's start with this past Monday, 31st of March, was the deadline for the National Department of Basic Education to have eradicated pit latrine toilets at schools. I think, if I can recall the Human Rights Commission's report, there was still something like 3,000 pit latrine toilets at schools. How close did the DBE get to reaching their target?
So I think since the inception of GroundUp, we've been covering pit toilets at school, visiting different schools across the province as well as other provinces. And one of the stories that we happened to pick up on in 2014 was a devastating case of 5-year-old Michael Kumape, who fell into a pit toilet at his school in Limpopo and unfortunately drowned. And at the time, the story made national headlines, and there was a lot of effort to, there was a push to eradicate pit toilets across the province, as well as in other provinces. But I think it was only 4 years after this incident happened that the national government went and did an audit to say, okay, we've got this amount of schools that have pit toilets, and we're setting a deadline to eradicate all of them and to replace all of these toilets by a certain deadline. They unfortunately missed that deadline. And I think it was 2021, that an organization called Twitch Section 27 took the Limpopo Education Department to court to actually compel them to go and eradicate pit toilets in the province. But also national government had set a deadline to eradicate pit toilets by March. So this deadline had come and gone. Minister Siviwe Gwarupe has said, they're 93% done, and most pit toilets at most schools have been eradicated. But the situation on the ground is that there are still a considerable amount of schools that still have pit toilets, and we have a situation where young kids are having to use these toilets during the day. And we can't have a situation in 2025 where young learners and young children are possibly risking their lives to go and use the toilet and just to relieve themselves. So we're going to be sending journalists out to different provinces over the next couple of weeks to actually go and investigate and check on some of these schools.
Just that name, Michael Kumape, Barbara, it just dawns on me that there are people who are symbols of a failing or an uncaring state. Michael Kumape is the face of children who suffered the indignity of pit toilets. Andries Tatani is the face of police brutality. Nkaneni Noki, the man in the green blanket, it is the face of police brutality during the time of the Marikana massacre. Nkosi Johnson is the face of an uncaring government in the 1990s who failed to provide ARVs. And so it's actually it's terrifying to think that children
That's exactly why cases like this, we cannot see them continue. And unfortunately, Michael Kumape was not the last student that had fallen into a toilet at the school. So we are definitely going to be checking up and following up on this to just basically see whether or not the department's list of schools will also include all schools that currently have pit toilets. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this one.
Let's talk about extortion campaigns. It used to be just construction sites, now hair salons, vegetable stalls, and other informal businesses in Cape Town's townships are being forced to shut down because they will not or cannot afford protection fees.
Yeah, so it sounds ridiculous, but the situation on the ground for people just trying to make an honest living is truly extraordinary and dire, because our freelance reporter Sandiso Paliso has been reporting and staying on this issue for quite a few months now. And last week, or a couple of weeks ago, we published a story about teachers at a school in Philippi who were having to be escorted into the school by police because gun-wielding criminals had come in and demanded part of their salary, in order for protection, so that they can just teach in peace. And then this week we went to, or we spoke to some vendors. It was ranging from hair salon owners, like you said, to people buying chisanyama meat on the side of the road. And if you think about it, these people aren't making large margins of profits. One woman said she made about 2,000 Rand profit. And one week, an extortionist would come to us, demand 500 Rand. And the next week, another different person would come and demand the same amount. So at the end of the day, she's walking home with nothing. So the situation is quite dire. And we have spoken to the South African Police Service to find out, what they are doing to not just mitigate some of the issues, but to make the area a little bit safer for businesses to operate, for the economy to thrive, or just the people to live normal lives in these communities. And we spoke. Yeah, sorry.
Apologies, Barbara. And then finally, let's talk about Langa residents who've marched to the Cape Town Civic Centre for clarity on who gets to benefit from a planned housing development in that ward there, Ward 61.
Yeah, so Mary Ann Gonzana has been reporting on this one, and most of the residents that marched to the Civic Center last week, they live in these apartheid-style hostels. So these are hostels set up during apartheid, and they housed workers coming from different parts of, not just outside the province, but different parts of the country, coming to work in the Western Cape. At the dawn of democracy, these hostels were then turned into, living environments and taken over by landlords. So families then moved into these spaces. The problem is that these hostels were never designed to house families, and it's just not environments where people can live at the moment. So they don't have electricity, they don't have running water. And I think about a decade ago, a promise was made by the city of Cape Town. I don't know if you drive on the N2, you'll see those new RDP houses, or double-story houses
Part
that
of
you
the
see.
N2 Gateway project.
Exactly. So, the city has made strides to provide additional housing in the area, but, the demand is so high. So, people are seeing more people move into these areas, and they're going, when is our turn? Thursday, for the first time, we've heard that Langa will be hosting their very first Thursday art night event. So we're going to be attending, and we're going to be seeing whether government's going to use this opportunity to also meaningfully engage with the communities, with residents there, to kind of grapple and talk about some of the issues, particularly around housing, particularly around safety. So we're going to be attending their first Thursday event this week.
Barbara October, really appreciate your time, Deputy Editor of GroundUp News. And of course, you can help keep good public interest journalism going. You can go to groundup.org.za, and then you can follow the donate link, and you can keep that operation going, because non-profit news organization, and they do it for free.